all, Frank Lamb here from the Automation Academy, and this is a podcast, Mastering the Machine podcast for August 23rd, 2021. And rather than having a guest, this week I was teaching in Pryor, Oklahoma. I actually carried this trainer along with me and taught a Siemens class, and then stopped on the way back and collected some crystals in Arkansas. It was a long drive, and I made most of this recording in my car on the way back, so it has a lot of random things in it, but I hope you enjoy it. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. If you hadn't noticed, I had not recorded a Mastering the Machine video for this week, and the reason is that I've been on a pretty long road trip to a plant in Oklahoma, and this was a paper plant, Cascades Paper, and they make paper towels and tissue paper and napkins and things like that. It was a very good trip. I actually took some extra time to stop in Arkansas and do some crystal hunting on the way back, so that's been a lot of fun also. It's currently Sunday morning, and I'm not too far from being back in Nashville after, I guess this is my 8th day on the road. I drove to Pryor, Oklahoma last Sunday, and it took most of the day. Left in the morning and arrived there evening time, checked into my hotel, and then went out to the plant the next morning. This particular job was referred to me by Sean Tierney. Some of you may know him from the Automation blog and the Automation School, and he has a lot of PLC classes, recorded classes, primarily Alan Bradley. But I've known Sean now for a couple of years. We've actually met up twice and discussed doing online training and PLC training classes, things like that. Gotten to know each other a little bit. He's a very good source of training material. For those who don't know who he is, I encourage you to check out his Automation School and Automation blog for Alan Bradley PLC training. He does a lot of good podcasts and videos also. But in any case, he referred me to this company. They had a plant in New York that does paper products, and they had this other plant in Oklahoma that was looking for somebody for Siemens training. So that's how I got involved with them. And this was a very good referral, and it makes business sense that I can give Sean a little bit of income for referring me classes like this, and anybody else who has companies that they want to refer to me for training, in-person training. I would certainly entertain the idea of teaching anywhere. I usually drive to places like this just because I can carry more with me, computers and trainers and things like that. But in any case, this was a Siemens class. I had 4 students. I had to follow a lot of of course, the rules that they had in place, masking and things like that in these COVID times. And I don't mind doing that. I did another class up in Vermont, as a matter of fact, last year, close to this time. It was maybe October, and that's again where I met with Sean Tierney up there, and we talked a lot more about online training and things like that, and in-person training. Got to know each other a little bit more. But again, went to this class. We started out the first day. I set up a trainer, and we were talking about step 7, which they had very little experience with. They had done a lot of Alan Bradley and messed with TI Port a little bit, but they had gotten some new Siemens equipment in the plant and needed to learn more about Step 7. So that's what we primarily covered during this class. We started out by just going over the hardware and some of the different platforms. Turned out they had some S7 300s and at least one S7 400 in the plant with a lot of just processing programming in it. And we were able to open up some of their programs and look at them. That was very, very interesting. I always like looking at other people's programs to see how they do it. Most of this programming was done by an Italian company, and there was English commenting, and after digging into it, it looked like they'd used some kind of interpretive program to do the conversion from Italian to English. There was some kind of symbol processing software, it looked like, that they'd use to do that. So if you didn't have English comments on a foreign program, which I've had to deal with before with a company called Fabricom, it's fairly straightforward to just get Google Translate and go put your English comments after the foreign comments, kind of in parallel, and that way if somebody has to come from whatever the originating country was and read their comments, they're still there, and you can just add your comments in English, the interpreted comments or any notes that you might have. For those of you who don't know this, on the older platforms such as Step 7, Allen Bradley's RS Logix 500 and things like that, the symbols and comments do not go into the processor. So they're only on your laptop. They're maintained in the documentation of the program, but they don't get downloaded into the processor, so you really can't hurt anything by commenting. So I would encourage everybody to comment programs as much as they can and put your comments or any modifications that you do to the program. It's a good idea to put your name and the date that you are documenting whatever you did, and keep in mind that your customer is the maintenance person who has to interpret those comments and determine what the programming that you're doing is actually the purpose that it's serving in the program. So that's a useful technique in whatever language you choose to do that in. In any case, it was a pretty advanced group of people. They had lots of experience in PLCs and maintenance, so we were able to progress pretty quickly. I'd say by the second day, I had completed most of the typical 4-day Step 7 programming that I usually do. That's a standard class. I'd completed all of that. So by the third day, we took a tour of the packaging side, the converting side of the plant, and went and looked at a lot of their equipment, dug into some of the programs, and a couple things that I remember from that day. One thing is, well, actually this was the final day in the process control. They had a Honeywell controller that actually used Allen Bradley ControlLogix cards, which I thought was very unique. And they had DeviceNet and ControlNet being run by a Honeywell DCS, which I didn't know that Honeywell and Allen Bradley had such a close relationship where Honeywell could actually use the Allen Bradley hardware. So that was an interesting discovery. And then on the converting day, we dug into some of the processors and the layout, and I discovered some new products that were used in combination with the PLCs, such as they needed fast motion control, so they had used a motion controller called Robox, R-O-B-O-X. And again, since this was an Italian integrator, Robox appears to be an Italian motion control company. If you Google Robox, you'll find all kinds of other connections, including Roblox, right? R-O-B-L-O-X, which is, I think, children's robotics kits and things like that. But Robox is a Italian motion control company. And there were several other hits on Robox, R-O-B-O-X also. So that's a good way to learn about things nowadays we didn't have 20 years ago when I was doing a lot more integration of just Googling things or looking on YouTube. Again, if you notice that I'm looking in the mirror a lot, there is a decent amount of traffic around me on Interstate 40 here, headed between Memphis and Nashville. I'm probably an hour out of Nashville right now, so I figured I'd use my time here wisely and record something equating to mastering the machine and just talk about whatever I'm up to. In any case, so Thursday we did that. We toured the converting side of the plant. And then Friday, we did some TIA Portal, opened up the software for that, and just familiarized the guys with it, and did a little bit of just basic programming simulation, used some timers and set up some function blocks, things like that, and talked about the difference between TIA Portal and Step 7. And they picked up on all that pretty quickly, and then went over and toured the process control side of the plant, which is an entirely different thing. It's on the other side of the road, entirely different thing than converting. So converting, you're taking rolls of tissue paper and things like that, and you're packaging it into rolls of paper towels, individual rolls, or toilet paper, and stacking it up and putting it in film wrap and things like that. Sometimes printing ink on the paper, right, putting patterns on napkin paper and things like that. And one of the things I saw that was really interesting was a very high-speed napkin folder that was almost entirely mechanical, and they could do something like 1,500 packages of, or 1,500 napkins per hour, something along those lines. But it was so fast that you really couldn't even see it operate. And I've been in some converting plants before, but not for tissue paper, so it was very interesting. Converting is the act of, slitting paper and folding it and rolling it up and things like that, doing something with the raw material. That's just a generic term for processing of raw material. Converting, it can be used for rolls of steel as well as rolls of paper. So this was a converting and packaging plant, that side of the road. The other side, the process control side, was much more of the raw material. They would take like a raw wood pulp material and mix it with recycled materials. So they would take magazine paper and things like that, separate out all the plastic parts, pulp it up, and mix it with the raw wood pulp material, and put it on like a screen, a very high-speed moving screen, with rolling it around the screens and the rollers through heat and getting rid of most of the water. That was what a lot of the process involved, was taking this very wet, pulpy material, putting it on this screen-type web, and then drying it and forcing all of the water out of it, heating it, and then at the very end, of course, rolling it up. And that's again where this big Honeywell DCS came into play. Lots and lots of analog loops, which for those of you in process control are familiar with what a DCS does. Lots of analog loops, analog inputs and outputs, and controlling things on individual loop basis for the rollers and the speeds and the temperatures and the components, the chemical components of the baths. There was a lot of monitoring of thickness and temperature and kind of the consistency, the moisture content of the paper. And so that was really interesting to watch too. And then, of course, at the end of Thursday, I packed all my stuff up and said goodbye to the guys, and got in my car and headed to Arkansas, and spent 2 days hunting crystals in different crystal mines. So the first day I went to the Sweet Surrender mine, and I pretty much had the place to myself for about 5 hours of just digging through the dirt, hunting for crystals. It was really, really hot. So I drank a whole lot of water that day. A couple other people showed up to do some hunting. This is a pay for dig site in, again, the Ouachita Mountains of Arkansas. It turns out Arkansas is a world-famous crystal digging area. Lots of natural crystal there that you can go and pay different fees at different mines to go dig crystals up. That's pretty fun. And then the next day I went to the Avatar crystal mine, and there were a bunch more people there, and I met the owners and got to dig around and found some pretty nice little crystal points, very water clear crystals, as well as some phantom crystals, kind of gray crystal points. So that was a lot of fun. And then of course today I'm heading home. So I've got a couple weeks of not going anywhere, and then I have a tentative class for automation training, which is the kind of generic training company that I contract to in Canada, and they send me to different hotel sites and plant sites. I think this is a plant site in Orlando, Florida, and it, again, tentative. I think they're just waiting for a purchase order for that. And then the following week I'll be headed to Baltimore and doing some work with McCormick Spices. So they have a spice mill there, and of course they package spices and things like that. But I work with them individually. I get with the different maintenance people and go through and connect to the different machines and talk about any problems that they might be having with their particular software and understanding it. Siemens and Allen Bradley primarily, and there's some standalone controllers and things like that. So I help with them with whatever they might need. But that's something that I've done now for a couple of years, just gone out and worked with the individual guys. It kind of branched out of doing some Siemens training, but now has turned into like I said, a kind of an individual consulting type job. But during these 2 weeks, one of the things that I'm going to be doing that is very interesting is meeting with the Vice President of Engineering at Automation NTH. And I've mentioned Automation NTH before a few times, but they are an engineering company that's coming up on about 100 employees. They do a lot of work in the medical device arena with a company called Dexcom and another one called West Pharmaceuticals. And I've done training for them both on site at Dexcom and for West Pharmaceuticals at Automation NTH's facility. But I'm going to be having a meeting with them about their NTH University, which they have training for their interns, and I do 1 to 2 classes every year for their interns. And their interns usually do about 4 months of an internship, and they work in the panel shop and they draw electrical drawings and then do their own projects and build their own control panels and write their own controls program using different platforms. So when they started out, I think they used the major platforms such as Allen Bradley, Siemens, Modicon, GE, things like that. But they've been doing more even on the Arduino and Raspberry Pi side, doing kind of the same project and building a little control panel using things like that. So almost more of the Internet of Things type platforms, as well as building controllers and all kinds of things. But they actually are looking for help operating NTH University. And for those of you who do training or write or anything, there is an opportunity there. And, you may call Automation NTH up and talk to them about it, because I'm not 100% sure that we're going to be able to work out a deal, but they want somebody to run that NTH University, and I may work out a deal with them to help operate it. I'm actually talking them in terms of an interview to take the position, but I don't think I can give up owning my own company. I've 20 years out of my life now. I've owned a company called Automation Consulting. My first company, Automation Consulting Services, was actually we transitioned from being a controls house into being a machine builder for the last 3 or 4 years that I ran that company. So the name Automation Consulting didn't even really fit that company, but I kind of transitioned into that and then closed that company in 2006 and went to work for Wright Industries, which is a big machine builder in Nashville. That's how I ended up in Nashville. But then in the beginning of 2012, so almost 10 years ago, I reopened as Automation Consulting LLC, and truly started out doing consulting and also some contracting with Automation NTH. So that's kind of how I got involved with them. And then before that, my wife even worked for Automation NTH as a control panel builder in their panel shop when they were much, much smaller. Now they've kind of grown and become a much bigger corporation, and they have this NTH University platform and are doing some pretty big jobs and of course building some machines themselves for these medical device manufacturers. And I do, like I said, I do a lot of training for them, but they really need somebody to kind of full-time operate NTH University. And we're going to talk about this, myself and the VP of Engineering, who I've had, by the way, on this Mastering the Machine webinar before. But we're going to talk about ways that maybe we can cooperate, and maybe I can help them operate NTH University while still possibly maintaining my own company. I'm not sure what form that would take. It's kind of a up in the air sort of thing right now, but we're going to anyway discuss that this coming Friday. So that's one of the things I'm really looking forward to. We're going to spend a couple hours hashing over different ideas. And, I think I'm going to start out just by what is the job? What exactly are they looking for? And it may be that they're just looking for a full-time, manager of NTH University, in which case I don't know that, like I said, that I can take a full-time position with another company and close my own company. I have a lot of things of my own going on. I would have to give up, I think, a lot of the traveling training that I do and some of the consulting jobs. And in particular, as those of you know who have followed some of my podcasts or webinars, I do a lot of work for American Beverage Depot in Miami, and I don't think I can give that up. If I did, I'd honestly be leaving them a little bit in the lurch. So I don't think I want to do that. But we'll see what Automation NTH really wants out of this, and it's possible that we could work out something where I do a lot of work for them and develop content and teach while still being able to maintain my relationships with American Beverage Depot and some of these independent customers or consulting jobs that I do, and even automation training, which again, I learn a lot traveling around the country and meeting different people in different plants and getting to take plant tours like this Cascades, which Cascades, again, was totally independent of automation training. So suddenly I'm starting to pick up a lot of work on my own without just contracting to automation training to do the teaching. When I do that, usually I teach custom PLC classes or custom systems integration classes. And that's a little different thing than just a standard 4-day PLC class. So if I seem like I'm rambling on, I probably am. But that's what it's like just driving down the road and talking sometimes. If this is a Mastering the Machine video, which I think I'm going to publish it as my Mastering the Machine video, because I honestly just didn't have time. I try to do these every 2 weeks, and I just didn't have time to do it this time. I knew that Friday and Saturday I would be
And that's when I normally do them on Fridays, right? Thursday I was in class, so I couldn't do it then like I did the last one. Friday and Saturday I was in these crystal mines, and again, there was no internet out there. I'm in the middle of nowhere. And then today's Sunday, and here I am driving. Could I have done a podcast this evening? I mean, I didn't even advertise this as a podcast, so no, I probably couldn't have done it any other way. And this is going to serve as, like I said, my Mastering the Machine video for this week. Now, normally when I do a Mastering the Machine video, of course, it lasts an hour, and I've had guests on, I don't know, 90% of them since I started doing this last November or so. And I don't have any guests this time. I'm in the car all by myself, so once again, I guess I am the guest. If somehow I work something out with Automation NTH and start working more with their interns and their company, I would love to have them on and possibly do webinars interviewing people from NTH, some of the specialists they have there. They have a lot of engineers and are doing some pretty amazing things with some of the machinery that they produce. Some pretty cutting edge, high speed, robotic, and servo-oriented things. One of the machines that I saw when I was out there doing a West Pharmaceutical class was a couple of robots doing some kind of manipulation of some almost micro thin little wires as part of a process. It was really neat to watch. And one of the cool things was they were using ignition, as I am for American Beverage Depot, but they were using it on a per machine basis, and they have, of course, vision systems and things like that, and robotic interfaces, and they're monitoring a lot of what's going on in the machine, and you can view, in addition to the production data and things, and control the machine, you can view all of the machine vision images from within the ignition computer. So I thought that was kind of a neat thing, and I'd love to dig into that a little more and talk to them about some of the technology that they use. Again, I'm a kind of an old guy, so I did a whole lot of machine vision back in the 1990s, mostly with DVT, and now machine vision has just evolved quite a bit. I actually bought a couple of Cognix cameras and a Keyence camera back before the tornado hit my facility, and had planned on doing a vision class or vision lab, but a lot of that stuff kind of got knocked around, and I still do have some of the cameras. I think I'm short some lenses and a lot of the mounting equipment for it, but fortunately some of it was in boxes, so it didn't get damaged too bad. And I've actually got the Keyence vision system mounted on a kind of a vertical board where I can maybe build it into a little trainer. And as a matter of fact, now that I remember it, I was called by the Keyence guy last week, and I haven't gotten back with him, but he wanted to come out and visit and talk about maybe some of their products and machine vision things. So maybe that'll encourage me to build this stuff up, finish the trainer out. One of my problems, I'm just an individual person. I know sometimes people look at my company and they think it's bigger than it is because I'm involved in doing a lot of different things, but I am just an individual person in this company, and so it takes me a long time sometimes to get things done because I'm working on 3 and 4 different things at a time. So things like machine vision demos, Arduino and Raspberry Pi projects. I've had the stuff to do that for a long time now, but really haven't sat down and put together, I would call it video-worthy products using that stuff. So I hope to get into that a little more, and honestly teaming up with somebody like an Automation NTH that has all these interns and people involved with it could possibly give me the ability to get some of them involved in it and then just document it, right? Do the training in terms of somebody else spending a little time putting together those products and projects and just documenting them really well. For those of you who do follow the podcast, and if you're interested in getting some of your projects on there, where I can show a little bit of what you do, I'm happy to do that. I always need material for webinars and podcasts, this Mastering the Machine thing, in support of my Automation Academy. So, speaking of which, it has now been 1 year since I came up with the idea of the Automation Academy as a membership site and started building the website. Started building it beginning of last August, and of course I opened it up in November. And I do have some people that are members. You know, they join for like a year at a time, but honestly a lot of people don't log in. Probably I get more attention via the webinars that I do, the Mastering the Machine webinars, than I do actually people joining and downloading material and watching videos and things. But I still hold out a lot of hope that there is a lot of training material on there, a lot of downloads, and of course a lot of it makes its way into my books and things like that. So I do have hopes that I can grow it, but I realize I think I was very optimistic last year, thinking, oh well, I'll open this up and I'll just work full time on it. And it was pandemic time, and I wasn't traveling a lot at the time, and so I thought, oh, well, I'm gonna really just devote all my efforts to this. But reality hits, and all of a sudden you find that you have to go out and do more, actual jobs, training, and things like that to kind of keep the lights on. And I've been very fortunate that I've had a lot of work to do lately, but the unfortunate side is I kind of haven't done as much content development as I would like to. So again, that's one of the things I would love to help Automation NTH with, the content development side, and be able to use that in the Automation Academy. And I am also working on a book, partially at the urging of Automation NTH. They need a troubleshooting course for Dexcom. So I thought seriously about just putting together videos on troubleshooting, but you quickly run into the problem of, I don't have the exact machinery that Dexcom uses. Of course, at my facility, I did go and take some pictures for documentation and things, but I don't have video of people operating the machines or whatever. So I kind of need to justify something like that, I need to create a more generic troubleshooting course that would apply to multiple customers instead of just medical device manufacturers and just people using the robotic assembly stations and things that they use. So that's the book that I'm writing right now. So in addition to covering troubleshooting, I'm also putting together a lot of basic material on just electricity, electronics, pneumatics, hydraulics, machine vision, again, PLCs from a very broad perspective, not in the detail that my advanced PLC hardware and programming book covers, but just in general, what are PLCs, what are some of the brands and things like that. And that book, I told Automation NTH that I would like to have it out by this fall, but it seems like every time I get another job like this, or like the ones coming up, I feel pretty obligated to take them, or work with American Beverage Depot when they need help, which just puts off the finishing of the book. I will get some time this week to work on it. lot of traffic around, a lot of people cutting in and out and being crazy on the interstate. But I hope to get some time to work on that this week, and again, by the end of the week when I meet with the VP of Engineering there, I hope to have a lot more detailed information to show him on that book and say, here's kind of where we are on this troubleshooting class project and basic maintenance material. Now, what do we do with it? Do we publish it as a book? Do we take it apart and use it as separate sections for this troubleshooting class, or just concentrate maybe on maybe even a troubleshooting video using the equipment that they have there? I'm not really sure yet. So anyway, I'll find out more about that again after talking to them this week. But in any case, this has been kind of a review of what I've been up to, and I'm putting it in the place of the Mastering the Machine video. I was thinking seriously about trying to find somebody on LinkedIn to maybe interview Monday or Tuesday, which are kind of my only free days, but then I thought, why not make use of driving time and go ahead and fill my time with some of this in-person, rambling on and on about what I'm involved with. I also plan on doing a Mastering the Machine specifically on entrepreneurship. I don't know who I'm going to use as a guest for that, but I would love that to be my next Mastering the Machine video. I did talk to James Dean on the last, I believe that was the last video. No, Phil Scruggs was the last Mastering the Machine video. So it was the one before that, and James did talk about entrepreneurship, and he did have a video out. I just watched it, I think, yesterday in the hotel on a little more of the entrepreneurship and business side of things. But I would love to have somebody on, and talk more about business, and hopefully provide some good business tips for those who are thinking of starting their own automation businesses. Where do you start? How do you get involved in doing what you love, kind of with a purpose, and headed towards owning your own business? So that's tentatively what my next subject is going to be on the next Mastering the Machine video. But again, I'm not sure, because that again lands on possibly that Orlando trip. And if I do that Orlando trip, I will be driving to Orlando, doing a 4-day class there. That's after Labor Day, so it's Tuesday through Friday. Then driving from there to Baltimore, doing 5 days in Baltimore, and then driving back home to Nashville. And that's, best I can tell, about a 2,400 mile driving round trip. So again, it's hard to do these webinars or podcasts or whatever you want to call them when you're on the road, certainly with a guest. That's a hard thing to do. But anyway, that's what I'm involved with. What are you doing? What are you doing in your life? Leave a comment or get with me. And if you're interested in appearing on one of these Mastering the Machine webinars or podcasts, get with me, and I'd love to feature whatever you're doing. In any case, I'm going to end this here. Coming up on Nashville, got about another 30 miles or so to go. And it's been nice talking to everybody today, and see you down the road.